When you started, did you even like know where you're like, yeah, let's like see what we can do with this thing?
The only thing I can parallel it to is like my journey to the NHL, let's just say. Being an entrepreneur in general is a very lonely road a lot of times. You have to do every aspect of the business, so which I personally think is an invaluable portion of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And
is that the scariest part where you're like, hey, I'm gonna take this kid onto the team this year. Let's hope that this isn't the personality that causes dysfunction with what we've already built.
I made a couple of the wrong decisions or it was the wrong timing. And those things to a business are catastrophic.
I think the reason that Verbero is more like a chameleon, there is a general care for evaluating the hockey world and what's needed in the hockey world.
You're 100% right. The industry is stagnant in a lot of ways. In the industry, in hockey in general, there's an entire breadth of people. And in a lot of ways, they're a more appreciative audience for a brand like us. Verbero is a prescription for success. We bake cookies for a living. And we make really fucking good cookies.
The women's side of NCAA basketball has never had the attention. And like I go to, okay, like how is this being marketed? It's being marketed like this is Caitlin Clark. She's the GOAT. Don't you want to watch greatness? Addressing the rumors about your comeback after retirement to the Oregon Ducks.
Buddy, I'll be honest with you, like, it's been a minute, buddy.
It has been a minute because our lives are crazy, but because things are changing so much, constantly.
Well, yeah, I mean the website rebirth. It's like I don't even like using rebirth.
Yeah, just like, because like fuck them, you know what I mean? But like,
it's a constant evolution, like most things.
It's a genesis. I don't know. Genesis. Am I using that word the right way?
You are using it.
Am I?
Yeah,
oh, dude, that's
correctly.
surprising.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Just watching Verbero evolve over the years has been so cool.
Yeah.
Because you start out like anything, you start out with great intentions, and then if you do the next piece right, like you work hard, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you're constantly reevaluating. If you're evolving properly, you're taking like what you've learned that day and applying it to the next day, and then trying to make that the best day, just to try to stay present and focused. And then obviously common denominator is always the hard work, but then you've got to have luck. You've got to have meet great people along the way, because you can't lift a big load alone. You have to start to spread out as a brand. That's one of the things I've found most challenging, but also the most beautiful, because as we've added people to our team, and because our nucleus is so strong and our core values are so they're so set, in the way that we think about things. Like I really think that we've carried over sort of the mentality, the on ice mentality,
which is like to me it feels like on ice mentality is like a startup mentality. Like when I think of entrepreneurism, or like, and I'm not saying like Verbero's at that point. I think that we're a company that's growing fast because of the partners that we have been doing business with, and that we're making huge gains. But we still have that like gritty startup mentality. Can change, avenues on a dime when we need to, and make changes fast. And there's no like huge hierarchy that you have to go through in order to do things. When you started, did you even like know where you're like, yeah, let's like see what we can do with this thing? Or was it like, is there a goal? Like, was there a goal and you're like, okay, I'm still working towards that?
The only thing I can parallel it to is like my journey to the NHL, let's just say. I worked really hard. I had the very best of intentions, and I'm very intentional, as you know, in general anyways. I apply that daily and kind of just attack the day, right? It leaves you tired sometimes you trip over yourself and slam into the wall face first, whatever it is, but like you get up, you learn from whatever it was, and you press on. So of course in my mind I was like, man, can I make this awesome? Can I take this brand and really like transform it and make it awesome? And being an entrepreneur in general is a very lonely road a lot of times, because especially early on, you spend a lot of time by yourself. You have to do every aspect of the business. So you don't have an assistant, you don't have like a customer service person, you don't have a social media person. You're doing it all, which I personally think is an invaluable portion of what it means to be an entrepreneur, and it really makes success feel that much sweeter. And it also allows you, in my opinion, to care for your team and build your team better, because you understand more what that person does on a daily, and you have respect and appreciation for it, because like customer service or product fulfillment. It's not sexy.
Right.
But it's a necessity, a very distinct necessity. And you know how customer service focused we are.
Yeah.
So the people that do that for us are as valuable as anybody in the company.
Right.
And that's again back to the on ice mentality. Like when you played, I think when anybody plays, like I don't think anybody ever really thinks they're like better than anybody from the team. You're fighting so hard for that logo on the front, even though there's a name on the back.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always that sort of like that parallel, I think, of where you're certainly representing yourself to hopefully to the highest degree because people are watching. Right. But then you're carrying something deeper, that logo on the front. And that's what that's one of the reasons I love this business so much and love the custom aspect and how just the importance that we apply to that logo and the significance of the name that's on the back of that jersey if you're lucky enough.
Mm-hmm. Like following up from that, as we're using like a hockey team as a parallel to kind of talk about like the team that you're putting together at Verbero. Is that the scariest part where you're like, hey, I'm going to take this kid onto the team this year. Mm-hmm. Let's hope that this isn't the personality that causes dysfunction with what we've already built. Is that the scariest part when you're expanding a company? Because like obviously you get to the point where you just need to continue to hire. Like that's the only way to grow really, right? Like there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many hours of intention within those hours, like of true intention, like us having this conversation. Like we couldn't sit here and talk like this for 8 hours. I mean, we maybe could.
We probably could, yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? It's like when you're wired, it's like you can only be wired for so long. So it's like when you are looking out to be like, okay, we need someone to take some of this off, need someone to take some of this off. We're growing in this avenue for sure. We need help here. Is that the scariest part? Is it like, what if we get that, the one kid that goes onto the 14U team with like a huge ego that is just fucking wreaks havoc?
It can, you're right. And early on I made a couple of the wrong decisions or it was the wrong timing. And those things to a business are catastrophic because you invest, I think you invest at least 6 months in that person, to help them assimilate into what you're doing. And then as sort of the leader of that, you have to be very specific with people as to what they do, how they do it, and then how that sort of flows through the company. So early on, when it was, let's just say when it was Jake and Donnie and I, right? Bringing that next person on was a huge thing that represented 25% of the business. Yeah. So if you don't bring on the right person that brings a shovel to work every day, the person that comes with like the positive outlook every day, the person that like is willing to attack, just attack and be cerebral and like and work through the thing, and then someone that brings in skill sets that offset your own deficiencies, right? Because like I have deficiencies, you have deficiencies, so it's constantly, and I think the parallel is there as a coach or a GM trying to put a team together, trying to put these puzzle pieces together. So there's definitely some trepidation as you start to build out the team. But what has happened, and I know you know this, like we've built a solid culture, and we have people that, like, independent of me, fight to defend the Verbero culture, right? They fight to defend the name. They're if there's a scuffle in the corner, they're in there, like without even asking a question, sticking up for each other, right. and I love that we're like that. So that's what I mean, where we've carried this on ice aspect into our brand, and we're not corporate. And we're never going to be. I don't have any interest in working in that kind of construct. Right. And we don't really have any red tape. So what that allows us to do is be nimble. And we've changed like a chameleon. I mean, we've changed dozens of times. And that's important. I mean, I think even as humans, like we're meant to sort of like shed our skin on the daily and restart in life, with everything that we've learned up until that point. And if we're not looking at ourselves that way, where like we're trying to unlearn or deconstruct the things that sort of tend to pile on us as people or as businesses and figure out ways to relieve that load. We're minimizing our ability to go forward because there's weight, whether it's like spiritual weight or literal weight. We carry these things like a bag of bricks, and sometimes the easiest thing to do is just drop it off.
Changing like a chameleon, I feel like a lot of those decisions came from the importance of you of actually, like, every company does market research to a certain extent, but a lot of that research with other companies in the industry, and this is across every industry, is around spending money. not need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, let's do some market research to see if somebody would spend $425 on a fucking stick.
Yeah.
Not, do people need this $425 stick? Is this going to help hockey in the long term? Is there going to be longevity in marketing a stick for this price with some technology, right?
Yeah.
And do you think the reason that Verbero is more like a chameleon, yes, we're not corporate, but also, to me, it feels like there's a general care for evaluating the hockey world and what's needed in the hockey world as far as accessibility, as far as customization, as far as branding teams and movements and players that can make it, like, give it more exposure from a media standpoint. And do you think that's part of the reason that Verbero feels like a chameleon because we're listening, not because we're doing our own market research to make sure that we're going to have the biggest profit margin this next year?
Yeah, you're 100% right. You know, the industry is stagnant in a lot of ways, which I'm actually very happy about. You know, the top brands have their way of doing business, and it's very different, almost the polar opposite of the way that we do business, which is by intention. You know, all the while they're focused, and I give the iceberg analogy a lot. They focus on the things that are marketable, that are kind of like the tip of the iceberg above the water's surface. Well, in the industry, in hockey in general, there's an entire breadth of people, you know, beer leaguers, you know, single A, double A, association club hockey. I mean, there's a breadth of players that all love the game the same way and are all trying to be their best.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, they're a more appreciative audience for a brand like us that comes in and listens and supports and does all the partnership things that we do. And in that, like, for me, as that's grown, it's become more and more rewarding. It's become more and more connected, and I feel like we're really making a difference in the game. Like, and that's really cool to say. Like, we don't get that many opportunities in life to, like, really make a difference.
Yeah.
And I love that we do this, and we do it with so much passion and care, and that we're also, like, not trying to price gouge people.
Yeah.
We're trying to do, we're working our best to do it as fairly as possible, while also providing as much value beyond, like, the arm's length transaction, and providing a good. The good is just the piece, right? But it's the relationship that we pride ourselves on building.
And I think that's like the distinguishing factor too. And I remember talking about this of, like, okay, well, our top stick is priced at $249. Like, it can confuse consumers, where it's like, we're like, no, this stick we believe is better.
Yeah.
Than we fully do. Like that's there's no, like, hiding. Like, we fully believe that we have the best gloves. We have the most customizable gloves. We fully believe that our stick technology stands up to, if not better than, any other stick on the market, right? 100%. And so we're not catering to a certain demographic of the hockey market based on them not being premium. Instead, we're just saying everyone should be able to access these premium products.
That's right.
You shouldn't have to sacrifice anything. It shouldn't be this, like, you know, secondhand, I'm going to buy this from this shop thing, whatever, because, you know, the struggling hockey mom and dad that, like, have 3 kids playing hockey, and they're like, Jesus, like, I can't spend $1,200 every time I get each kid one stick.
That's right.
And it's like, that's the thing too, is like, I think sometimes that's where kids get confused, especially kids, because they're so impressionable, and you have these top brands that are, you know, they're going from the peak of the iceberg or the top of the industry, and they're doing trickle down marketing.
That's right.
It's like, we're not saying, hey, this is the cheaper option. No, we're saying this is a premium option that we are not going to just price gouge the shit out of you on.
Yeah.
And that can be confusing to some people. So that almost makes our job harder to be like, that's not where we're trying to go. We're not trying to give you a cheaper option.
That's right.
We're trying to give you the best option at a fair price.
That's right. And you know, the iceberg analogy is a good one in this, because that sort of top-down marketing strategy, it's a reason a lot of brands and a lot of young brands fail, because that's a very suppressed place to play, and it's suppressed because there are a lot of brands that come in with the next idea or the next thing, and they're going to try to play in that sandbox. Well, the problem is, whether it's the store, you know, the shelves in the grocery store, or the hockey industry, the area of focus is choked out, and it's choked out by the top brands, and they choke it out on purpose because for them that's the entire infrastructure that they built. The irony of it is they don't make any money. I mean, they're a publicly traded company. You can see what they do. They lose money, or they don't make any money, even though they control a significant market share. So their business is not a good business. It's not even an investable business. If I was just looking at it as an investor, and I was going to look at Bauer, I would not invest in Bauer. I mean, there's just 0% chance I'd invest in it.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you really think about what, you know, if you back to the iceberg mentality, like if you think about what we're doing, and it's sort of like when you get a fire started, and and when you get coals, and then you get a bunch of coals in the bottom, and then like it almost lights anything on fire. Like we've been working hard to build this smoldering fire that now is like the flames are starting to rise now, which is a really cool thing. And we get the answers that we need because we know that our program is so progressive, and we know how much value we bring just literally across the board. And I can say it till I'm blue in the face. We do. And in that, when we get the opportunity to meet with a potential customer, if you don't see the value of the things that we bring, that's okay, because you might be stuck in your, you know, regimented thinking or your process, which a lot of people do. A lot of people are creatures of habit, even if it's a bad habit, right? A lot of us are just that way in general. So,
or just like irrationally scared of change.
That's right.
Because it's just.
But at the same time, like common sense is common sense, and hopefully it's more common than it seems sometimes, because when we meet with people that immediately see it, they're like, wow, you guys have solved every problem. You know, I had a long call with a large association last night, and it was a 25-minute call with their board, and by the 7th minute they were like, holy crap, like this exists for us. Like, you can solve the problem of like stressed team managers, hockey directors who don't know what's going on, products showing up late, so working through multiple vendors, no access to fundraisers, no access to a stick deal that makes sense. You know, there's just so many things that we do to complement the products that we know are also top shelf.
Yeah, the alleviation of stress of parents working basically other full-time jobs, being a board member. They like alleviating the too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. It's like, hey, this is the one-stop shop. Like, you don't have to work with 6 vendors to do all these different things. And like, just managing, people don't even think about just managing conversations with 6 different vendors. Like, are you fucked? Like, who wants to do that? It's so much to even manage one conversation with one vendor.
And there's no control. And what I said to the board last night was like, our goal at the end of the day is anything that has a Verbero brand on it, we manage every aspect of it. I want it so you don't have to worry about anything relative to what your players and families need on and off the ice, or what they use for travel with their bags, or whatever the thing is. That's what we strive towards, and we've got the recipe for it. We call it the How-To Verbero. I mean, How-To Verbero is a prescription for success. We know exactly what it is. I say all the time, and it's so cliche, but like, we bake cookies for a living. Like, this is a cookie recipe. This is a cookie recipe, and we make really fucking good cookies. And we know how long it takes to make the cookies. We know how many ingredients it takes. You know, the right combination of ingredients, and we don't take an order if you try to tell me I've got to make the cookies in half the amount of time. We have no interest in doing that. We don't want to set partnerships up for failure. We want to set them up for success. So we put a lot in the planning. The devil's in the details, as everybody always says, and it's true. And we invest a lot on the front end to make sure that the back end is secure and make sure the partnership is insulated.
As we're kind of talking about, I mean, accessibility is a huge component, probably the biggest component in the growth of hockey and like growing the game. And that's one of the kind of the pillars that we're really trying to hit on this year is growing the game and the things that need to be done to grow the game. Different sport, but have you seen at all what like Caitlin Clark's doing in NCAA women's basketball, or heard at all about it? So, and she just had a game last night against LSU, who they lost to in the finals last year, put up 41 points, like went off, was like 9 from 20 from 3, like insane, right? And you're seeing like Angel Reese, I think, said it the other day, and she's on LSU. She's like, we have more sellouts than the men's NCAA tournament. You know, it's pretty cool to see, and like, we hope, you hope young girls can take inspiration and all this, which they like, they absolutely should. But you're seeing this like, okay, how do you grow a sport and how do you grow a game, and like seeing something like that, because the women's side of NCAA basketball has never had the attention like this that it has now. But why do they have that attention? And like I go to, okay, like how is this being marketed? It's being marketed like, this is Caitlin Clark. She's the GOAT. Don't you want to watch greatness, right? And like what saved basketball in the fucking 90s. It's Michael Jordan. He's the GOAT. Don't you want to watch greatness?
100%.
And you have a heel, like you have like WWE, like you have like for some people they saw LSU as like the villains. You know what I mean? Oh, let's watch Caitlin Clark get her redemption against LSU. And it was this like giant kind of pandering to hero versus villain, to that kind of thing, which even went like too far to start, like the players had to start being like, dude, we don't dislike each other. Like we still like each other. We respect each other as opponents. But then you see this gigantic growth and exposure on social media. Everybody's talking about it. So it's like, then I think, and then I come back to the game of hockey. And I'm like, where is that? You know what I mean? Where is the heel? You know, where's the player that nobody likes because of what but you need, like, it's like it's as bad as it is, no one wants to be that person, but that person gets paid, and people watch that person. And that person makes a sport marketable. So where's that player? Who's the hero? And I think hockey, a lot of times it's like harder because it's really hard for one player to impact the game like a Caitlin Clark can. But I don't know, what are your thoughts as far as like the personality of hockey players? Like, I love Bedard, unbelievable player. But like, you watch Bedard in an interview and you're like,
he's like a stale fart, bro. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he's young and he's got some stuff to figure out. And I noticed it when I played too. Like, everybody takes themselves way too seriously. I mean, it's just like, you've got to just loosen up a little bit, you know. And it usually takes time to do that. You know, you'll see some older players like I really love Brad Marchand. Like and he's earned the right to be able to do whatever he wants.
He's a heel for sure. He's the closest thing that the NHL has.
He is, and he also embodies. I think a lot of the core values that we never want to leave the game, because he's, you know, despite his shorter size, he's right in there, man. He's not afraid of anything. You know, he's the first guy in there to mess stuff up and stick up for his teammates and do what needs to be done to win. And what I'm seeing, just in general, and it's tragic to me, but it's a general loss of a lot of those assets. And there aren't as many people. I talked to and who did I talk to the other day? I was talking. Ryan Getzlaff told me the other day. He said it's the Y generation. I said, what do you mean? I thought he meant like Y, like the letter Y. He's like no, why? He said the kids nowadays ask why for everything. So the coach will say, we're going to run this kind of forecheck, and it's not like, all right, we're doing it. It's like, well, why? Like, what the fuck you mean why? Because I told you that's what we're doing, because they have this kind of offense, and we're going to try to minimize this or that. Like you shouldn't have to tell them why all the time, you know. And the iPads, and you know, the way that that players go and they try to overanalyze everything. It's paralysis by analysis, and it's a stagnation of spirit, and it's a minimization of like the play aspect, the creativity. And the creativity should transcend the game. Even it should go off the ice. There should be personalities, and it should be marketed. To your point, like that should be encouraged and marketed in the right ways.
Do you think that old school way of thinking around hockey, though, is a reason that we're seeing stale personalities like we do, like the kind of like players not wanting to risk putting themselves out there in a way that's beyond the team, because of, like, would you see in your career, would you see like backlash for that if somebody like said something that wasn't team oriented or was talking about themselves in an interview or something of that sort?
Well, we've also suppressed people, like, just in general, because everybody's worried about being canceled, and so everybody's a little like deer in the headlights, just stuck in the tracks, don't know what to do. You know, even the way that they you know, suspended, myself included, like suspended everybody out of like a certain way of playing. So now the guys skid around. I mean, a lot of games, there's hardly a body check thrown. I mean, it's all about maintaining speed, and it's fine. It's probably safer for the players, but like it's gotten rid of a lot of the grit that I think was really fundamental to hockey. And when you have that kind of grit, that kind of like, you know, in the trenches mentality more, that's a fabric of the game.
Yeah.
And
And
once
you
that,
get personality from that because of the competitiveness.
you do. There were all kinds of guys I played with that excelled at that.
Yeah.
Like and myself included. Like I wasn't the sexiest skater. I wasn't the most offensive, but I was willing to do anything to keep the puck out of the net.
Yeah.
I was willing to do anything to make the offensive players have a bad night.
Right.
You know, and none of that stuff is really like a statistic necessarily, you know. And I just feel like, you know, then there's the off ice aspect of that, and just, you know, it's more entertainment now. And I think with social media and everybody thinking they're so self-important, I think it's going to be really hard to get back to like the team first aspect, because players now, you know, a first-year player can have like millions of social media followers, and can post anything, can rip a team apart if they want to say the wrong thing, and then no one's really policing what they say at the same time. But then at the same time, they're also very stale and stagnant. So
is that good or bad? Do you think? Like, is it good or bad to have? Like, do you feel? 'Cause I feel that we need to have players with a social, like with a presence, where they're like, where, you know, if Connor Bedard plays against Toronto and he gets a couple of cheap shots, like he can go into press after, he can go to whatever socials and be like, those fucking like pieces of shit, like we're gonna do whatever to them next time we play them or something like that. Like, do you think that's good or bad for the game?
I think it's good. You know, you saw a little bit recently with McDavid and the Maple Leafs, and like there's some stuff that goes on, and I personally think it's really good. You know, I think where hockey has it suppressed, I think society has suppressed it because of like the cancel culture. Everybody's worried. Yeah,
for sure.
And then there still is a traditional element to hockey, which I actually appreciate. It's sort of like two of the last bastions. Like, you go to church, you tuck your shirt in, you put something nice on, you look people in the eye, you shake hands, you're not on your phone.
Yeah.
You go to a private golf course, same thing. Like, you got to look a certain way, you got to act a certain way, you take your hat off when you go into the grill. You know, there's just some things that remain, and there's very few places in society where that remains anymore.
Yeah.
And everyone can have facial hair and like show up whenever they want, wearing whatever they want, do any kind of business, work from home in their underwear. Like, we've really kind of blown the doors off. And I think a lot of people just don't know what to be, because there's so much reference everywhere of like everything that's going on. You might even just feel a little repressed in it. You know?
Yeah, I think it's definitely tough too. It's like you're saying, to piggyback off the cancel culture comment, it's like it is tough to kind of be your own self with the fear of like the amount of external backlash you can get. Yeah. Right. Like in the 90s, there wasn't socials. You wouldn't get 10,000 hate comments if, you know, you did something that people didn't like. Yeah. Which doesn't even necessarily have to be like some grand political, you know, statement. It could have just been like, you wore something that people didn't like and you're getting hate comments. Like,
totally.
I remember I posted a TikTok video showing off my pictures in college, and I got 2,000 hate comments on it. It was crazy, dude. Like 3 million views.
Well, you were a Chippendale though, so I mean, like, let's be respectful.
I mean, it was just like, you know, but it's something that quick. You know, putting up a 15-second video, and it's like, this person's the fucking worst.
We're very affected. It's one of the things that I have the biggest problem with. We're very affected. Like, and in a lot of ways, how could we not be? I think about the young people, you know, especially I have kids, like just being in that world where like everything in an instant is so important, but it doesn't make a lick of sense to me, because everything that's posted is something from the past that has also been altered, so it's a lie. It's posted in the present, but people are going to see it in the future, disrupt their presence to post something that happened way back. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't, it's not linear, it's non-linear. It's not investable, because it's not truthful. There's no relative truth in it, in most of it. But then we're completely consumed by it, like little drug addicts. I mean, it's absolutely bananas. And I think that's the undoing of everything. If you really want to get into it.
I was literally on the way here, I was listening to a Joe Rogan episode, of course, big fan of Joe Rogan. And he had a sociologist, I think it was on, but he was specializing, and he just wrote this book called The Anxious Generation, and it's about the kids that were young kids when COVID happened, and they were sucked way more into screens, because shutting down playgrounds, shutting down, you can't go outside, you can't do that, which was literally like the best thing you could have done, is go outside, get vitamin D, and fucking like breathe air, like free flowing air. But, you know, hindsight's 2020. Now he writes this book that this is now the anxious generation, because you have like a group of children that they're impressionable, they don't have the ability to actually establish a sense of self before going to these online platforms and getting all this external feedback. And so now you have kids that only derive a sense of self from external feedback. It makes them very anxious in social settings, and he's calling it the anxious generation. I have to listen more to the podcast, but
well, and I see like such a detached connection too. Like when I see young people, a lot of times, like you're kind of like, are you in? Like, is somebody in there? Like, what's going on? I mean that like with the utmost empathy, because it's terrifying. I mean, this is the future of these people, right? And like the like where's the passion? Where's the lightness, the creativity? But if you think about it, like, and I had this experience with my daughter, who right at the start of COVID went back to Canada, and I mean, it's completely shut down, masked everywhere you go, and then it opens up and she moves back to California and she's going to go back to school, masked every day, separated by plexiglass.
In California right now?
No, like for years after COVID started.
Yeah.
You know, and then you lose that ability, because if you cover somebody's face, I mean, what does expression look like? When you're trying to connect with a teacher, you can't see the mouth, you can't see a smile, you can't see. So like, I actually think that it went on long enough that it might have even changed the way that like our faces interact in an exchange, how they're supposed to react in an exchange, because it's just, and then they're almost like comfortable, like you become comfortable with this thing. We become like habituated to like even like a parasite.
Right.
You know, it's crazy what we can accept and tolerate.
It's so interesting to try and rein it back in, because we could talk about I think it's so interesting to look at the presence of social media in the growth of a sport like hockey. The importance of personality for individual players, again, the hero and the heel. And then like how much though is this thing that we're using to properly market, to get exposure, to reach young kids, also harming those same kids? Like it's a really interesting discussion, like from an ethical standpoint, from a growing the game standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. But at large, it seems like you're a fan of keeping the traditional values in the sport of hockey, but also encouraging personality.
I'd love to encourage more personality. I'd love to see like kids just be sillier. You know, just like take themselves less seriously and just have more fun. Like
you and the mic'd up stuff at the skill session. Like I literally you don't see anything like that really.
No.
You know?
No. Just have a great sense of humor. Like even Ovechkin, like he did it, you know, he was kind of that way. You know, he wasn't afraid to like put on funny glasses and a cape and like try some goofy move, you know, like, and it's just, but he's kind of an exception to it. You know, he's a GOAT, right? So he can kind of do what he wants.
And who's the next Ovechkin? Like who's the next guy that is like, he's like, I can barely speak English, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's going to be really funny.
Getsy was telling me too, like in the practice now, like all the guys want to go out and all they want to do is like work on their stick handling and all the little stuff, right? So they're all off in different sections, like doing crazy stuff, like and just drills. Trying stuff. Like, you know, where before like we'd skate around and start a practice and we'd be like, you know, passing to each other as we go around. Like you'd cruise with a guy for a bit and chat for a little while. It was just, I don't know, there was a soul to it, you know, and a connectivity where like everybody was kind of pulling the rope the same direction. Yeah. And I think, you know, like, you see what's happened now in the collegiate sports. You see like what Nick Saban said, you know, when he quit basically, and that he isn't willing to invest anymore, and it's uninvestable because the athlete isn't capable of doing the things they need to do to uphold the team values that he fought so hard.
When they're getting paid like that.
Totally.
Yeah. I think it's like when do we get back? Is history nostalgic, or like? When do we get back to a competitive rivalry like Detroit Red Wings versus like Colorado Avalanche in that fucking series? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, Ryan. I think that the things that maybe we're nostalgic about from that rivalry, those things, the Darren McCarty, Claude Lemieux stuff, like cross-checking Draper, you know, from behind and face first into the boards, and then like the onslaught that ensued, and like the fierce playoff rivalries that they had, like that sort of just kept compounding year over year. I don't know, man. I don't think the meat of the game has those attributes anymore. You know, I see the players; they're all joking around, jovial. It's like they're all more worried about what suit they're going to get videoed walking into the rink, and you know, and how that's going to be portrayed on social media or like wherever else, and the accolades that they get from that. You know, the Michigan goal they're going to try to score, like whatever it is. It's too much. Getsy is saying, I hate to keep going on about it, but he was talking about those pads on the bench, and he said he broke so many pads that the video guy came and was like, Ryan, please, like, don't break any more pads. He's like, well, don't put them on the bench then. So he was like the leader of that team, fighting for just like, hey, let's stay together, let's be creative, let's ride in chemistry, let's not be like microanalyzing everything. Like if our stick was like a half inch over, there has to be some free play to it, because in order to be an exceptional player like Ryan was, you have to be oscillating in your deep subconscious, where you're devoid of thought, because you can process like 10,000 times more thoughts per second than you can if you're overanalyzing everything. So when you're overanalyze anything, like you're in a different part of your brain, so you're not accessing the vastness of creativity, and that's a problem to me.
Right. Dude, it's fun sitting down and talking about these things, and then also trying to rein it in. Like, you don't want to rein in these conversations, and then like sometimes you're like, I do have to. But
they're rabbit hole conversations.
I know, yeah.
They really are.
They're fun to have. I mean, that's literally my job. So, like, the presence of
to rein me in.
Well, no. But like, social media, the presence of that, of personality versus, upholding the values of the game versus all these things. Like, how do you be a new age hockey company and when you do like some of the traditional aspects of the game? And it's like, I think we've teetered the line very, very fairly with that.
I do too, Ryan. We fight for it every day. Yeah. We try with all our might to uphold certain constructs, and that's even like where the Jersey fundraiser came from. Because I believe that kids are very entitled now. I think their instant gratification has never been more prevalent. And at the same point in time, like, I was sent out on the streets by myself as a kid to go sell garbage bags to try to make money for the association. So there was buy-in. And I didn't argue it. Like, it wasn't like, I'm not doing that, Dad. Like, it was like, like, I'll do whatever I can to help, because I know like what a taxation this is on your time and your pocketbook. And now, like, with the Jersey fundraiser, like, we've made it easy, and in a world where like you want to send someone a QR code to go in and help support an association. So it's like, I love that we have fought to keep core values like buy-in, like helping your parents out with costs, like you're having appreciation for that in your own way. And the Jersey fundraiser is kind of a new school, old school approach to selling garbage bags door to door.
Heck yeah. All right, last thing that we got to address, because we have to actually film something after this that I forgot about. But addressing the rumors about your comeback after retirement to the Oregon Ducks.
Buddy, I'll be honest with you. Like, I had a couple people like fall for the April Fools. They're like, Sutsy, what's the deal with this? I'm like, it's on, brother. It's on. I legit.
You got texts about it?
Legit. Like, I think a lot of people forget about April Fools, and they're just like, what are you doing? Like, and it's funny. It's tongue in cheek, but like, to be honest, I would love to. Like, I miss it so much. Like, just being in the locker room, being connected to the journey as a team, like getting to put that uniform on with your brothers in arms and going out and just cracking skulls. And it's like, it's the best, But I think the ship sailed for me, buddy. I'm a barn boy.
I was regular. Like, so you're gonna leave it open for the people?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm too busy to take the minimum amount of classes. I think
to move out to Oregon.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think Oregon's it's probably not on the top of my list right now. I'm Tennessee through and through these days.
Yeah. Well, episode 2 of Fundamental. Yeah. Hey, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling, big dog. Thanks for everything, bud.